شكرا سيدي الرئيس.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, it's regrettable to see this inhumane scene at the outset of this meeting. When the Security Council voted against the willingness and the desire of the General Assembly, as if we in this international organization have become dealing with two charters rather than one charter. A charter that is implemented by some members here in this council, and another comprehensive, inclusive charter according to which members of the General Assembly act. It's also regrettable that the voice of commitment to General Assembly Resolution 46182 that has established OCHA in the first place, the voice that was raised by the permanent representative of the Russian Federation at the outset of this meeting. This voice has been the victim of a political agenda since the adoption of Resolution 2165. It is dominated by a humanitarian dimension. I'm going to explain to you my motives behind saying this. And since the outset of this terrorist war against my country, the government of the Syrian Arab Republic has made relentless efforts to ensure the delivery of humanitarian assistance and services, as well as support to all its citizens without any discrimination across the country. These efforts have enabled millions of Syrians to continue receiving their monthly entitlements, social support, food aid, health care, and free education, as well as salaries, despite the blockade and the coercive unilateral measures imposed against the Syrian people. The government of Syria, along with its key humanitarian partners, such as the Syrian Arab Red Crescent and duly authorized NGOs, have engaged in sincere cooperation with relevant UN agencies and other humanitarian actors, such as the ICRC, and 27 foreign NGOs that have been authorized to operate in Syria. The Syrian government has rendered all facilities and support to all these organizations while fully upholding the sovereignty of the Syrian and independence, territorial integrity of the Syrian Arab Republic, as well as the guiding principles of coordination of humanitarian action stipulated in GA Resolution 46/182. And in the face of the efforts of the Syrian government, supported by its allies who believe in the international law and the provisions of the Council, the representatives of Western countries, including humanitarian pinholders, have persisted in violating the provisions of this charter through using the rostrum of the Security Council to defame the Syrian government and to prolong this crisis and stand in the way of its resolution. What is reprehensible is that OCHA has been partial and has taken the side of Western states in being hostile to the Syrian government. Through continuing this hostile approach against the Syrian government and overlooking the significant efforts made by the Syrian government and its institutions at the humanitarian level, as well as the crucial role of the Syrian government in facilitating the humanitarian action of the United Nations, OCHA has been incorporating in its many reports, many fabricating claims, misleading assessment, and inflammatory rhetoric. And this is unprofessional and unethical, that runs counter to the spirit of partnership and cooperation with which the Syrian government deals with UN agencies and humanitarian partners. Mr. President, my delegation has clearly expressed in the two meetings held on the 19th and 20th of December, has expressed its legal, humanitarian, and ethical motivations behind our position that rejects the renewal of the provisions of the resolution on the cross-border humanitarian access. The resolution that was adopted in artificial or contrived circumstances that no longer exist for the following reasons. First, there is no legal or ethical status or character of the so-called pen holders and the Western states standing behind them, because any claim from them or those behind them that they care for the Syrian people is a mere lie that is refuted or contradicted by the practices of the government that invest in terrorism, perpetuation of occupation, waging war and aggression, as well as imposing unilateral coercive measures against country and pillaging our natural wealth. Second, pen holders and those behind them have relentlessly ignored that the center of humanitarian action in Syria is and should always be the capital Damascus exclusively, rather than any capital or city in neighboring countries and further afield, in line with the sovereignty of the Syrian Arab Republic that is inviolable and that is emphasized by the resolutions of your Council. The violation by pen holders was demonstrated clearly today in the statement of the permanent representative of Belgium when he noted in his opening remarks that the delegations of Belgium and Germany have consulted with members of the Council and neighboring countries of Syria. That's what he said. But he forgot the need to consult with the Syrian government in line with Resolution 46/182. And also, or therefore, the Belgian ambassador called for voting on the oral amendment that was introduced by the permanent representative of Russia. This oral amendment demonstrates the importance of upholding Resolution 46/182. Ambassadors of Estonia and the United Kingdom, as well as the United States of America, regrettably, in their statements, repeated the same interpretation, unilateral interpretation of the provision of the new resolution. And they said, and you heard them, that the delivery of humanitarian access, that cross-border humanitarian access does not require consultation with the Syrian government. This runs counter to the logical and legal interpretation that was put forward, for example, by the ambassador of China and that of the Russian Federation and other ambassadors. Third, pen holders and those behind them were not committed to General Assembly Resolution 46/182, as I said, that governs humanitarian action, which underscores the need for respecting national sovereignty of the state concerned and to cooperate with it in providing assistance, not only providing them with straw notifications that do not meet the minimal standards of transparency, professionalism, and credibility. The pen holders and those behind them have ignored the developments on the ground since the adoption of Resolution 2165 on the 14th of July 2014, which include inter alia, the recovery by the Syrian government and its allies of all the areas that used to be called besieged or hard to reach. Today, there are no besieged areas or restrictive or hard to reach areas. They're not there anymore. Fifth, uncovering of facts regarding unlimited support provided by governments who are known for terrorism after long denial. Facts such as using border crossings that are not controlled by the Syrian government to ensure continuity of delivery of money and weapons, including chemical weapons, to terrorist organizations, and also smuggling oil, artifacts, and property. Sixth, The staff of OCHA and the monitoring mechanism of the United Nations have been unable to ensure the continuation of humanitarian delivery to those in need among Syrian citizens, as ensuring that assistance do not fall in the hands of of terrorist organizations that have been pillaging and stealing these assistance to strengthen their control and to fund their terrorist organizations. This applies to Idlib and its environ that is controlled by the terrorist Jabhat al-Nusra organization that finds a lifeline and survival in the support of the rogue Turkish regime through the operations room in Gaziantep city. They control our border crossings with Turkey, through which money, weapons, and assistance flow. Who knows? Terrorists who are transferred by the Turkish regime publicly from northwest Syria to Libya may get their share from these UN assistance. So OCHA today is providing food and humanitarian assistance to Idlib terrorists who are bound to Tripoli in Libya through Turkey. That's humanitarian action envisaged by some members. OCHA, of course, and Under-Secretary General for Humanitarian Affairs, as always, will commend violations of the Turkish regime or by the Turkish regime to international law and its support of terrorism. And they will call on countries to reward this regime. What a hypocrisy. Seventh, OCHA and the monitoring mechanism have been unable to provide clarifications on the nature of the so-called partners and third-party independent companies, despite our repeated requests to provide clarifications in this respect. Mr. President, it's high time for some here to abandon their approach of remote diplomacy and politics, as though who are playing PlayStation. They should engage, in particular humanitarian pinholders, in supporting the Syrian government efforts and its institutions, and to stop leveling accusations, smear campaigns, and hostility. In closing, my delegation reiterates that the priority is to improve the humanitarian situation in Syria, and this cannot be achieved through the support of the efforts of the Syrian government and its allies, and to end unilateral coercive measures imposed against the Syrian people, and to cease attempts to undermine reconstruction, recovery, and providing an environment conducive to the return of migrants. I thank you, Mr. President.
I thank the